welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing the frustrating books tag. So I was tagged for this video by Rosie from the channel Rosie Cockshot. I will of course link her down below. She is a wonderful booktuber who makes really amazing videos, so you should all go check her out if you haven't already. So it's been a while since she tagged me for this. I think maybe back in the beginning of January. Could be further back too, but I hope not. I'm finally ready to do it. I have been looking forward to this one because it has some really fun questions. So let's just get to it. Question number 1. Name a book you predicted would be 5 stars, but wasn't. For this one I'm going to talk about a book that I'm not sure I predicted it to be 5 stars, but I thought I would really love it. And that book is The Storied Life of A.J. Thickery by Gabrielle Savin. This book just sounded like it would be like right up my alley. It was about a guy who works in, or I think he owns a bookstore, and he ends up taking care of a young orphan girl. And it just sounded like so nice and cozy, and it was about books and found families, and it just sounded like it would be pretty much perfect for me. Unfortunately, I ended up not liking this. I mean, I guess it was fine, but I just thought the writing wasn't very good. It all felt very like surface level, kind of shallow. I just never really felt like we completely like delved into the story. So this ended up being kind of like meh. It was kind of forgettable, almost like I cannot really say much else about the story now. And it's only been, I don't know, maybe a year and a half since I read it. So yeah, I thought I was really going to love this book, but I didn't. So the second question, what book had a great beginning but an ending that let you down? And for this question, I'm going to talk about a book that I read back in 2019. And that was one of my favorite books of that year. And that book is Like a Love Story by Abdi Nassimian. This book came so close to just being my perfect book, apart from the ending. I still give it 5 stars, so it was still like amazing. But it just, the ending, it didn't ruin the book, but it kind of like ruined my experience maybe a little bit. So this book is a YA historical fiction. It's set in the 80s. And I've come to realize that I really love historical fiction set in the like 70s and 80s. It's about a group of 3 young people, 2 boys and a girl. The 2 boys end up falling in love during the AIDS epidemic. So it's like an emotional book, but it's also like happy and fun, and it has wonderful characters. It has like a lot of Madonna references, and it was just amazing. I loved it so much, and it was so close to being perfect. But then the ending happened, and it wasn't quite what I wanted, I guess. I understand why the author made that choice, and I guess in a way it made sense for the ending to be what it was, but it just wasn't quite what I was hoping for. So like I said, I gave this book 5 stars. In hindsight, it might be more of a 4.5 because the ending is still kind of bothering me about this book. Because this is, like I said, it was so good. And this is a book that I could see myself rereading like over and over. But because of the ending, I'm kind of hesitant to reread it. So I still haven't. But yeah, this book was just amazing in so many ways. And I loved it so much, apart from the ending. So question number 3. Do you have a book with a pretty cover but an ugly spine? So I went through all my books, and I couldn't really find any that I thought had like a really ugly spine, but I found a book that has just like a boring spine, and that book is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivy. So this cover I think is pretty nice. I like this cover a lot, but then it just has this like brown boring spine with just the text, which doesn't really fit the rest of the design. Like it's pretty nice on the back as well. So yeah, I guess this was the closest one I got. I don't hate this at all, but yeah, it's not really anything exciting. It's just kind of boring. The book, by the way, I have read. It was pretty good. I can't remember what I gave it. It's been a couple of years, but maybe like 3.5. So yeah, it was pretty good. Question number 4. Do you have a book series that doesn't match? Maybe some are paperbacks and some are hardcover, or maybe the cover designs were changed halfway through the series. Does it bother you? And yes, I have a series like that, and yes, it bothers me. The series where it bothers me the most is probably, let me try if I can hold it up, The Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. Oh my god, I'm going to drop this. Like you see, the books they're matching, except for this one, which is the first book. So, I mean, this looks just super nice on my shelves, apart from this annoying, smaller version of the first book. Like, the cover designs are matching, but the size doesn't, and I don't understand why they would publish the first book in, like, a smaller edition. This actually bothers me enough that I will probably buy a new edition of the first book if I come across one that matches the rest. Because this is just annoying, because these books look pretty nice together, and then the first book just kind of ruins that image. So this bothers me, and I also have, and then I also have another series that kind of bothers me. And that is this one. It's the Diviner series. As you can see, I have the first, the second, and the third book here. So these don't really match that well. I mean, the size is okay in this one, but they've just changed the cover design. I don't have the fourth book yet. I think the fourth book is matching the third book, this one. But yeah, this, I mean, they don't really fit together, and I mean, why would you do that? I like to have series with book covers that match. I like to be able to see that the books belong together in a series. And with this one, I feel like you don't really see that. So yeah, this one kind of bothers me as well. Question number 5. Is there a book from your youth that you can remember parts of but cannot remember the name or find it anywhere? And yes, I do have a book that I remember really enjoying when I was a kid, and I had no idea what it's called or who it's written by. So I probably read this when I was like maybe 10, 12 years old, or maybe in my early teens, I think around there somewhere. So what I remember from the book is that there was a group of kids who were stranded, I think on an island. It could have been somewhere else in the wilderness as well. It was definitely a place where, or really isolated place where like they couldn't get away from that place and no one could find them there. So it was like a remote, isolated place. I think it was an island, but it could have been somewhere else. And they were stranded there for quite a long time. It must have been years, I think, because they ended up sort of like building their own like community there. They had their own rules. They had like houses or some kind of like shelter that they lived in. And it was almost like a little village, I think, of these kids just settling down there. And so eventually I think some of the older kids who were like older teens or something, they started like getting together and have kids of their own. And it was just like this whole little community there with these kids. I can't remember exactly how the book ended. I think they were probably saved from there. But like what I loved about this book was the part where they just lived in this remote place and had sort of their own lives, and how they made things work for themselves, and how they stayed alive, basically. I'm pretty sure this is a fairly old book. I think I probably got it from one of my parents, and that one of them had it when they were a kid. So I think it's pretty old, but like I have no idea what it's called. I have no idea who wrote it. If any of you guys recognize this, then please let me know. It would have been fun to know which book this is. Question number 6 is, are there any books you're certain you've read but cannot remember anything about? And yes, I have a few of those, mainly because it's been so long since I read them that I don't remember. Some of them are also like newer reads that just did not make an impact on me. But the book I'm going to talk about here is a book that I read a long time ago, and therefore I don't really remember anything of it. And that is The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. This was pretty popular, I think, quite a few years ago. I can't remember, I probably read it a little bit later than that. So I know this book is about time travel, that is basically in the title. I can't remember anything aside from that. I think I liked it, or I liked it just fine. I don't think it was a favorite or anything. But yeah, it was okay. I enjoyed it when I read it, but I cannot tell you now what this book is about. Question number 7. Have you ever recommended a book you love to someone and they started telling you everything they don't like about it? Does it bother you? In other words, do your feelings get hurt when someone doesn't love one of your favorite books? So I don't think that this has really happened. I mean, there have been times when someone has read a book that I really loved and they read it and maybe didn't enjoy it as much as I did, and I mean, that is fine. We all have different reading tastes. That being said, I do get a little protective of my favorite books. But I mean, as long as people don't like give me long lectures about everything they hated about that book, I mean, I'm fine with that. As long as they're being respectful and not being like mean about the fact that I have a different opinion than them, then, you know, it's all good. I'm not bothered by that. Question number 8. What is your worst experience loaning a book to someone? So I thought about this, and I don't really think I have any like truly bad experiences with someone borrowing one of my books. I remember at some point when I was younger, a friend of my sister borrowed one of my books and she ended up like ruining the book. I don't really know what happened. I think maybe she spilled something on it or something. But she ended up replacing that book. She got me a new copy, so I mean, it was fine. Apart from that, I don't think anything really bad has happened to a book that I've let someone borrow. I know I've gotten books back that have been dog-eared, for instance, which it doesn't really bother me, but like I personally don't dog-ear books, and I would never do that with a book that I was borrowing from someone. So I guess it kind of annoys me a little bit that someone would do it with my book, but like it's not really a big deal. So I mean, I think that is pretty much the worst that has happened. So yeah, it's not that bad. Question number 9. Show me some of your impulse buys that you've never read. You know the ones. The ones you bought at midnight while online shopping, or when you were walking through a bookstore and the magic of all the books made you grab a few too many. And we can't forget all those books at such a good price that somehow made it into our shopping bags. And this actually doesn't really happen to me that often anymore. I used to do this a lot more often if you go back a few years. So most of the books that have been impulse buys I've either read or on hold at this point. But I do have this book, and that is Alligator Lake by Lynn Bryant. This was definitely an impulse buy. So I have this thing where sometimes when I'm in a bookstore, I'm fine with just like browsing and seeing what's there and not really buying anything. And at other times, I just have to buy something. Like I have this urge to just buy something, anything, because I want new books or something. And that was how I bought this book. It's been a few years now. I think it was probably back in maybe 2016, so it's been a while since I bought this book. I would never buy this book now because it's not really the type of book that I think I will enjoy. I mean, it seems to be maybe like contemporary romance or something. It seems to be about a woman who returns to her like the place where she grew up like 10 years after she left the place, and she left because she was like a pregnant teen, and now she's returning with her daughter, and I think she sort of starts to like dig into her family's past or something, and I think there might be like a romance. So I mean, something about this still intrigues me enough that I want to read it at some point. But it's just not the type of book that I would buy today. The cover looks kind of nice, which I think is why I bought this. I can remember quite clearly coming into that store, really just wanting to buy something. I can't remember if this was the only book I bought or if I bought others as well. But I remember just it was at the table at the front of the store, and it was on sale, and it was this really like nice paperback edition. And yeah, I ended up bringing this one home, and it's been on my shelves unread since. But like I said, there's something about this that intrigues me enough to want to read it, so I will probably pick it up at some point, and hopefully it will be a good read. So the final question number 10. Just to make you hate me a little bit more, how many unread books are on your shelves? So I actually know exactly how many unread books I have on my shelves, since I'm doing this whole project or this goal that I have to try and like get the number of physical books that I own down. So I can tell you I have 68 unread books on my shelves as I'm filming this, which, you know, it's a lot, but it could be worse, I think. But if we talk about my ebooks, how many books I have on my e-reader, I'm not quite sure. We're definitely talking hundreds. Some of them are like short stories and novellas, but you know, they're still things that I want to read at some point. But I actually have a list of all my unread ebooks and all my unread books in general. I have it in my reading spreadsheet, so I didn't bother counting all of them because there's a lot, but I like checked how many lines I had in the spreadsheet. And according to that, I think the number of unread ebooks that I have are probably around 330, which is a lot. I think it could be worse. I know there are people who have way more books, unread ebooks than that. But like, I keep adding new books to my e-reader way faster than I can read them. So I expect that this number will probably be higher at the end of the year. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like my physical TBR is like okay. My ebook TBR, not so much. So that was all the questions for this tag. So I thought I would for once actually tag some people. I haven't really been doing that because I've been doing all these seasonal tags that I feel like I've been doing a bit too late to tag someone else to do them as well. But this one is not, so I'm going to tag some people, except I couldn't really remember who have already done this. So I quickly checked some people's channels to see if I could see this video, and I couldn't, so I'm going to tag 3 people. If you've already done this tag, then of course feel free to skip it. So I'm going to tag Liz from For Booking Out Loud, I'm going to tag Lana from Lana Ex Libris, and I'm going to tag Ali from Book Binge. These are people that I would just love to see do this tag. I think it would be a lot of fun. So if you haven't already done this, I hope you will consider doing it. And of course, if anyone else wants to do this as well, then consider yourself tagged. So that's going to be it for today's video. This tag was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!